So, ladies and gentlemen, today he's back again. And of course, we all know that Kṣaṇāti is pretty much a master of astrocartography. So I'm like, I've been looking for a new place and I've been asking him questions. And I'm like, what you're presenting is just brilliant. And I think people should look at it in a very simplistic, beautiful way. So, Kṣaṇāti, show us your magic.
Thank you so much, Kapiel Ji. It's so good to be back here with you, my friend.
Absolutely.
And even before we dive into the science of the ASTG, I want to talk about a couple disclaimers after studying it for a few years.
Okay.
The first disclaimer is that you cannot escape your karma. So no matter where your karma is, if you're dealing with a tough Saturn karma, if you're dealing with a tough Rahu karma, if you're dealing with a tough Ketu karma, no matter where you go in the world, that karma will follow you there.
Okay.
So we can't use astrocartography as a tool to escape any karmic circumstances or conditions in our life because they're karmic lessons that we have to learn. And so be very careful when trying to escape your lessons and using the astrocartography for that.
Okay.
A much gentler, more casual way of using the astrocartography is living your life the way you would normally live it and going to places that you would normally feel inclined towards and then studying the energies there so you know what a little bit to expect as you're going into that new vibration. So it's better used as a tool to understand energies about where you already intend on going versus using it as a tool to find out specifically where you should go.
Okay.
So, that's just something to keep in mind. Now, there are places where your karmic expression will be a lot more benefic than other places, and we'll see that in the astrocartography.
Okay.
But just in general, keep in mind that, I'm experiencing this Saturn karma, so let me go to my Jupiter line. Let me go to my Venus line. Don't worry, Saturn will follow you there as well.
So it means that if you're destined to get into some car accident, doesn't matter if you're at Mars line, Jupiter line, or Moon line, it will happen.
Exactly.
In the other one, you will break your spine. In the Moon line, you may just break one rib or something.
Or you might heal quicker.
Okay.
Or the injury doesn't linger as long, or it could have been a little bit worse and then it's a little bit better. So especially when the karma shows that it's fixed in the chart through the Rashi. So now I'm just going to share a couple slides that I hope everyone finds interesting.
Okay. I know I will.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is some of the research I put together across the years for the Vedic Astro Cartography. All the presentations you can find off my website. They're already there for public access. This is my guru, Amma. I'm Ritananda Mayima. She's been my guru since I was a teenager. And so when we get into the astrocartography, we've all been places across the world where the energy is challenging and where the energy is easy. I mean, we experience that no matter where we go, but we don't understand where that's coming from. And it has to do with these unique planetary energies in various cities, states, and countries across the world. And so the interpretation of the science of where these lines are and how they influence us, that's what astrocartography really is. Now, when you get into where astrocartography came from, there was this Western astrologer named Jim Lewis who was born in the 1940s. He developed his first source called Mundane Maps in 1979. Now, he actually theorized that astrocartography was supposed to surpass the sidereal tropical shift because the way that his mapping software was based, it was based on more astronomical, scientifically measurable, and visual locations. So it had more to do with astronomy in certain ways than it had to do with astrology, even though we use astrology to interpret it.
Yeah.
So the basics of the science, and all astrologers are scientists to a certain extent, but I'm not the most profound scientist that you'll ever meet. But the science is based on planets rising in the sky, setting in the sky, and at midhaven or mid-level in the sky. So you can measure when the sun is at its highest point in the sky. You can measure at the point where the sun is at its lowest point in the sky. You can measure where it's in the middle of the sky. And this is the basics behind the science of the astrocartography. So whether you're using Vedic astrology to interpret it or Western astrology to interpret it, it's really up to you. But the way that the science was set up, it was supposed to go beyond this argument that we're always saying, sidereal versus tropical, sidereal versus tropical. You know, I approach it with the Vedic perspective, but from the way that the science was created, it's really not supposed to create any arguments there. So this is just a large map of astrocartography in North America. AS stands for an ascending planet. MC stands for a midheaven planet. IC stands for a lower midheaven planet. And DS is the descending planet. So you can see.
What is a lower midheaven? I know midheaven, but what's a lower midheaven? Is that like ninth house type line?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like midheaven is when it's like, you know, right in the middle of the sky. So lower midheaven is when it's a little lower in the sky. It's starting to set more. It's lower than it would be at the highest point in the sky.
Okay.
You know, I have a, this is my North American astrocartography. I got a lower midheaven Jupiter here where I'm from in Philadelphia. I have a midheaven sun, and down in Colorado and New Mexico, I got midheaven Venus and moon. So some places in North America that are affecting positive for me. But again, this is just to understand the science of it a little bit better. Again, here's a map of another part of the country. You have India, you have Thailand, you have Vietnam, and you can see my sun and moon, my Venus and moon are very strong in India, especially near Mumbai and Pune and things like that, and where my guru is down in Kerala. And also this circle here is a Jupiter vector, which means it's a high point of Jupiter concentration. So I have a lot affecting the, you could say, western side of India for me too, like the Himalayan mountains and stuff.
Okay.
So how do we integrate cartography into Jyotish? You can take a peek at my chart here, but you basically take the D1 and you align it with the Vedic, with the astrocartography, and we're going to go through some examples of how to do that. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is Artha, career, and finance, because a lot of people are in Artha times of life. They're in times of life where they're supposed to be achieving financially. They're in times of life where they're supposed to be achieving in their careers. So I like to look at energies in the 2nd, 6th, and 10th house. We're looking at Sun, Rahu, Venus, and Jupiter, and Taurus, Leo, but we're really looking for good dignity, position, and bala here from the 2nd, 6th, and 10th houses. And when we're analyzing these energies, we must consider, you know, the dignity to make sure it's in a positive manifestation. So the first example I use here is our former president, Barack Obama. I think this picture is quite breathtaking of him. Now, Obama entered as you look at Obama's chart here, he has a Jupiter retrograde debilitated ascendant. So that's a very strong ascendant there, but Saturn is in its own sign and it's very strong. And so there's some Nietzsche Bunga going on, and there's also some some aspects there that are so positive, very powerful ascendant. Now, Obama entered his Jupiter Mahadasha in July 1996 and left his Jupiter Mahadasha in July 2012. Because Jupiter is ascendant, that will give him lots of growth during that period. Now, if you look at the astrocartography, Obama's Jupiter and Mercury lines are directly in his home state of Illinois, where his political career thrived. And it was actually during this dasha, in November of 1996, 4 months after he went into the dasha, that he became the Illinois state senator. Now, Obama had no idea about his astrocartography, but here with the Jupiter line right here near Illinois, and Jupiter being such a strong position in the chart, it shows growth in that area for him during that time. He continued with many elections in Illinois during the rest of his Jupiter period and took lots of growth in his career during his Jupiter period. And, you know, every election that he ran for during his Jupiter period, he basically won that election.
Okay.
And that Jupiter line is right where he ran for all the elections, right near Illinois. And so the time period of his Jupiter Mahadasha also includes when he became president of the United States. So you have to look at, well, how did he become president of the states and when all of that energy is activated in Illinois for him? Mm-hmm. Well, another important aspect supporting Arta and career for Obama is his exalted moon. As you can see, the moon is at the 10th degree in the 5th house. And so you have to look at the exalted moon position in the 5th house where people are very magnetized to you. People are very attracted to you. And Obama's moon is in this Mula Trikona position. So it's in a very strong position here. So when you look at Obama's astrocartography, guess where his moon is, brother?
DC. I can see that. Yeah.
You know it's in DC.
Yeah.
It goes directly through C. So it brings all that Mula Trikona and Dharma and intellectual vibrations to Washington, D.C., where he served as senator and president for many years. This connection between the moon line and D.C. shows it's a strong dharmic place for him to fulfill his dharma, for him to do his dharma, for him to work his dharma. It was Mahadasha Jupiter and Subdasha Moon when he became president of the United States. And both of those lines were being activated, and that includes the primaries and the nomination and the election and the whole process. So as you can see, with Obama's astrocartography, it couldn't really have been more supportive for him, along with his Vedic chart, to kind of encourage him to become president of the United States.
Okay.
The next example is Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth was a great baseball player. I did a rectified chart. His birth time is unknown, so I rectified his chart based on some of the successes in his life and things like that. The first thing worth mentioning is all of his career and Arta significations are in the northeast part of the United States. Babe Ruth's second house, where Arta is activated, you have a Jupiter-Moon conjunction in Gemini. They called him the Great Bambino. The Great Bambino's moon line is right near his birthplace of Baltimore, Maryland, which shows his connection to the mother, but he also played for the Orioles, and also shows aspects of prosperity, success, and financial security. Since both Jupiter and Moon are located in that second house, he will experience much more Arta vibrations when he's closer to his Jupiter line, when he's closer to his moon line. So if Babe Ruth wanted to experience success in his career, those lines were going to be good for him to stay near. Now, his entire baseball career took place from 1914 to 1935, and he traveled a bit during his career. He went to New York, Boston, Massachusetts. He was with the Yankees. He was with the Red Sox. But he was in his Jupiter Mahadasha from 1904 to 1920. Mm-hmm. And as you can see, the Jupiter Dasha here going right in this part of this United States. So it does support his growth in that area during the time. Another really important aspect for Arta for Babe Ruth is you notice the Venus, Mercury are both in Kendra and Aquarius in the 10th house. And so when you look at the Mercury and Venus lines, they're together in his chart. And this is also in the Northeast aspect of the United States. So it shows all of the success for him in the Northeast aspect of the United States, where he would travel, he would play different teams. And so there's a lot of radius around these lines. But one thing that I did notice when I started looking at the research is the closer he was to his positive lines, the better he would hit there, the more home runs he would hit there, the better batting average he would hit there. Places where he was farther away from lines, when he would go to the West Coast, he would do much poorer. So there's these strong vibrations then bringing him power and good hitting during this time. So that's why I like using Babe Ruth, because he really, really hit where his positive lines were.
Wow.
So those are just some interesting examples when we're thinking about, okay, you're in an Arta time of life. You want to be in a place which supports Arta. And we just went over two good examples of Obama and Babe Ruth, where they stuck very close to the places where Arta was most beneficial for them. I hope that was interesting.
Yes. Now, one thing I did wanted to ask you, like you said, your karma will always follow you. Now, let's say Babe Ruth karma was to become Babe Ruth, regardless of what. Do you think that if he was, let's say, selected with a team in the West Coast, you think it would have been the same Babe Ruth still, or would have blemished some of his?
I think it could have led to him having a lesser batting average at certain times.
Okay.
And maybe slightly lesser home runs. So I still believe he would be top in the records and everything, but but people are barely beating his record still.
Right.
And maybe that would have happened sooner if he was in his Saturn line. He gets to leave more of an impression after his death because he stayed on the East Coast.
Okay.
So even though he was going to be the great Bambino, the greatest baseball player of his time, no matter what, signing with the wrong team in the wrong place can really mess you up.
Right.
As an athlete, it really messes up your career statistics.
Cool.
Yeah, so definitely athletes should look at their astrocartography before they sign with the big team.
I see. Okay.
So they can find out where they're going to hit the most home runs, pick the most.
You're a basketball player. Where will they score the most points?
Where will they score the most hoops?
Yeah.
Even musicians, where they will play the most shows.
Most shows, yeah.
Actors, where they will get the most gigs.
Right.
Astrologers, where they'll get the most readings.
Right.
So the next example that I want to quickly discuss, I just have one. When we're looking for romance and love, we look at Sun, Moon, Venus, but there's obviously different significations based on the chart. I noticed things in the Lagna 4th house, obviously the 5th and the 7th house, and the 9th house, some energies seem to show up. Obviously, the Venus-ruled signs of Libra and Taurus and the family-centered sign of Cancer are important, but these are just some general significations to keep in mind.
Okay.
So everyone loves Angelina Jolie, and they talk about Bradgelina, that story between Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. So let's get to the astrocartography bottom of what really happened there. When you're taking a look at Angelina Jolie's map, you notice a lot of stuff on the West Coast for her where a lot of her success was, but a strong lower mid-heaven Rahu line on East Coast.
Right.
So obviously some weird energies there for her. Now, guess this is very interesting. She began her relationship with Brad Pitt, we all know, while he was still married to Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah.
And Angelina Jolie was in her Venus Rahu period.
Okay.
And Rahu being in her 5th house. So it has to do with attraction and romance. And so when she met Brad Pitt, she probably had very strong feelings for him and probably didn't pay much attention to what was going on for him. Kind of got some strong Venus Rahu because, she has a Venus ascendant in Cancer too. So those combinations together are very strong. But Angelina Jolie got pregnant.
Okay.
And that means that Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie had to hide their pregnancy for a certain period of time until the divorce with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie was official.
Right.
That's so much Venus Rahu vibration. So Angelina Jolie entered her Venus Jupiter period the end of November 2005, and in January 2006, right at the beginning of the new year, after the divorce was official and everything, she announced that she was pregnant with Brad Pitt's baby. So it was an appropriate time to do that. And obviously that announcement was right near her Jupiter line. So when Jupiter and Venus both start to get activated, as you can see, there's a direct intersection of them in Los Angeles, California, Hollywood, California.
Yeah.
So once that Jupiter period got activated, and if you look at her chart, she has Pisces in Jupiter in the 9th house. So there's a very strong energy of her which wants to do good. I mean, this is why she's trying to raise children from all over the world. But it's like, you know, with that Pisces vibration and the other planets like Mars and Moon having some affliction there, it can create a little intensity behind it. But I would say that she means well and she has good intentions. But so she announced this, and both of these energies of Venus and Jupiter got activated. So it wasn't until that Angelina Jolie entered her Jupiter period that she could even admit that she was pregnant. The whole time that she was in her Rahu period, she had to lie about being pregnant. And that's so, and that's so Rahu. It's like
Rahu. Yep. This is disguise.
It's a disguise. It's a disguise. So you notice that Venus moon lines near California, and also in Northern California, she has a moon Mars moon conjunction. You can't even see the blue line of the moon, but if you go down to the glyphs at the bottom, you can see the moon right here. Her Mars and moon are only 2 degrees apart, so you can barely see the difference in their Maha lines in the astro.
What is that black line between Mars, the red and purple, Mars and Jupiter? What is that black line?
Pluto.
Pluto, oh man, okay. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, and Pluto combined with that Rahu Dasha must have been intense for her.
Yeah, she was actually in Rahu period. She was on drugs. She was very much into, you know, kind of like just wanting to lose herself.
Yeah, and so that Moon Mars energy getting activated in the 9th house as well, but she did come out during her Jupiter Dasha about her relationship with Brad Pitt. So you can see this process of the energy kind of starting during a Venus Rahu period for Angelina Jolie, right near where her Venus line was, but she couldn't become honest about everything that had happened between them until the Jupiter Antardasha, until both of those lines were kind of supporting her. So it's always good to look at romance and love, but we'll just talk about a couple spiritual examples. These spiritual examples are rather significant. We look at Jupiter and Ketu, but we really look at all of the planets. I mean, there's no planet that doesn't have to do with spiritual evolution. I look at the 4th house, 5th house, 8th house, 9th house, 12th house, Lagna. I really look at all different parts of the chart. I mean, we really can't separate it and say, okay, these are general significations to find moksha through the chart. Right. But obviously when the 8th house and 12th house are activated and Scorpio and Pisces are activated, it can show some very powerful significations there. So this is Pope Francis. He's the current Pope. He's probably the best Pope there's been so far. Nobody's perfect, but he's done a pretty decent job. When you take a look at his astrocartography, it's very, very fascinating.
Yeah.
Just to discuss a little bit about his chart, he's a Ketu Gemini Lagna. So he has Ketu in the 1st house at 1st degree. So that's pretty profound. And this has a great potential for spiritual life and spiritual path. And if you see the 7th house, where all of the planets are aspecting, he has Jupiter, Sun, Rahu, Mercury, stellium. And Jupiter is in Mula Trikona position. So this is a very interesting position for the Pope.
Well, you know, like whenever four or more planets are conjunct, especially involved with Jupiter, makes a person extremely spiritual. I forgot the name of the yoga,
Yeah.
but yeah, definitely is there.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much energy on the ascendancy as
And
well.
stellium, you mean like all the planets are exactly in the same degree as the sun, right? Or behind the sun.
Exactly. Yeah, and Rahu and Ketu. And he does have the ability to achieve moksha in one's lifetime, although obviously moksha from a Catholic perspective is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But he has talked about transcending our attachments. He has given speeches about transcending our material attachments. So he does have some insight into the true nature of moksha. So there's a lot of spiritual wisdom that he can give to his followers. The conjunction of the guru planet Jupiter with Rahu, Sun, and Mercury in 7th has strong spiritual significations, especially because it's all in Sagittarius ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter has natural position in that house. So it's very, very powerful. So when you get more to the astrocartography, during Mercury Mahadasha, which is October 1999 to October 2016, Pope Francis was ordained both as cardinal in 2001 and Pope in 2013. So due to Mercury's position within 10 degrees of Jupiter, it shows the spiritual advancement along with the 4th house, 10th house aspect of material and home advancement. So there's all sorts of advancements happening in the home, and there's all sorts of advancements happening spiritually, and also the ascendancy is growing as well. Now,
what nakshatra is his Jupiter in?
What's that?
What nakshatra is his Jupiter in?
His nakshatra is in, I have it right here.
Oh, it's Mula. Mula.
It is in Mula.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So there's a lot of Ketu vibration there.
Yeah.
You know?
Sun is in Mula. Rahu's in Mula.
Jupiter.
Yeah. Mercury's only one in Purva Ashada. Yeah. Okay.
So on November, 2013, he was named Pope. It was during his Mercury-Jupiter dasha. And what's the most fascinating is just to set a little bit of background about the astrocartography in where he became cardinal is exactly where his moon and Jupiter line intersect.
Oh, wow.
So there's a direct intersection of Mercury and Jupiter in the land where he became all of the growth and all of the realization of his potential. But when he became Pope, he entered his Ketu Mahadasha.
Okay.
And because Ketu is Lagna, he's still grown a lot spiritually during his Ketu Mahadasha. And he seems to be able to, better than other popes, adapt and trend with the culture of the society. And he already seems more mystically oriented than other popes as well.
Yeah.
Now, he has astrocartography in Buenos Aires, Argentina. We talk about those Jupiter and Mercury lines. And what's extremely interesting is where the Vatican is in Rome, Italy. It's the same exact lines. So the same exact lines which are helping him grow in his home country are also at the same time, from a distance, helping him grow within the Vatican.
Okay.
So as he's doing his Dharma and all of his important work in his Argentina, the Vatican is noticing him and maybe recognizing that he will be a future pope. Way years before he even became the pope.
Right.
So we see a reflection of these two energies in these two locations. So it does show a double activation, as I like to call it.
Right.
So during Pope Francis's rise during Mercury Mahadasha, which is right where both of these lines are, it was rising in Italy as well. And there's also the Jupiter that's rising because of the Mercury-Jupiter combination. And, you know, and key significations for Pope Francis also include the Sagittarius vibration of that 7th house, and Mercury being involved. And the Mercury dasha is because Mercury is when people talk. Mercury is talking. Mercury is when people talking about you. So all the time that the Pope was doing his dharma, all the time that the Pope was doing his work, everyone would always say, I love this Pope. I love this Pope. I mean, I love this cardinal. He is a great man, and he would be very good with communication, and he has generally been better with communication than other popes. And this is part of the strength of what is going to make him different than other popes.
Hey, that's my guru.
Namaste, Yogananda ji. It's always a blessing to look at the great Satguru chart, who probably has transcended their chart in many ways. So we can talk about that possibility as well. Whenever we discuss the chart of a great guru, they have the potential through their karmic evolution to transcend malefic aspects of their chart. So let that always be remembered, and let that always be known that the great Rishi, the great Sadguru, they are not influenced by the grahas like us humans are.
Mm-hmm.
This is Yogananda's ACG, and we'll dive more into it in detail right now. Key spiritual significations relevant to ACG include a Lugna Moon Leo, 5th house Sun Sagittarius, 8th house Jupiter Mars conjunction, and 9th house Rahu Aries. This will come up later. So in India, his homeland, you can see the moon line is going directly through. So that activates moon. That activates homeland, devotion towards homeland, unconditional love for homeland, and always feeling a deep connection to the homeland. I mean,
exactly.
We know Yogananda traveled as much as he could, but always he had such deep love for his homeland, and that can be shown through the moon line, and which goes directly through center of India, so it could practically be affecting the whole country.
Whole country, yeah.
Now, in ACG, Sun and Rahu lines in the West Coast, activating 5th house and 9th house. This will come really into importance later. But moon is the mother, and mother is home, showing, you know, growing up in the homeland, growing up in the motherland. In 1908, Yogananda opened his first ashram in India while in Venus-Jupiter Dasha. Now, Venus is in the 4th house of home, so it's still in his remaining country of birth. Jupiter brings strong spiritual significations because of its 8th house in its own sign. So there's a yoga position conjunction with Mars. Mm-hmm. So he did remain in India throughout his Venus Dasha and continued to build his community and his ashrams and learn from his teachers during this Dasha. Now, while in Sun Mahadasha, he moved to the United States, to Boston, Massachusetts. Throughout Sun Mahadasha, and by the way, we notice in his chart that Sun and Mercury are conjunct, even though Mercury has Gandant is at 0 degrees. So throughout Sun Mahadasha, which is 1918 and 1924, and Moon Mahadasha, 1919 to 1934, he traveled between the East Coast of the United States and the West Coast of the United States. He created ashrams. He created spiritual centers. He created institutions for higher learning. So he was really, you know, traveling between these two areas. Both these Mercury and Moon lines are prominent, and also these Sun Rahu lines are prominent. Now, this is obviously significant as we get later into the story, having Rahu in the 9th house position for Yogananda ji. But there's lots of ACG significations. He did go back to India during his Mars Mahadasha. So it was after the Sun and Moon Mahadasha that he wanted to go back to India, to the Mars Mahadasha. You can think of Mars being the karma that you have, because Mars being certain karma, what you have to complete, you have the wisdom, and now you have to share it with your homeland. So this could show his traveling back to his homeland during this time.
And especially Mars rules the fourth house of home for him.
Exactly. So it was very key for him to travel back to India during his Mars Dasha. The full realization of the Guru Yogananda, because before he was this great guru, he was a great teacher, but he really kind of became a great guru. And this climax began as his Rahu Dasha began, which not that he wasn't a guru before his Rahu Dasha. He was a guru before his Rahu Dasha. But we're talking about the full realization of people honoring him as a lineage.
Yes, he was given the title of Paramahansa, I believe, in Rahu Dasha.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was really this transition towards this Rahu vibration in the ninth house. This is the ninth house of the higher layer of the Dharma. Sometimes it's the house called the house of future lives. It connects us to our D9. It's the house of our spiritual evolution. So it really does activate for a mystical occult soul like Yogananda, who has that Mars-Jupiter beautiful yoga in the eighth house, that this will be the full realization of his spiritual potential.
Yeah.
So he would take on many disciples during this time, and he would be the guru and they would be the student. And he also published his extremely popular book, Autobiography of a Yogi, during Rahu's Saturn Dasha. So there's the Saturn in Virgo in the second house trying to put him to work during this Dasha a little bit. Now, Yogananda spent most of his time of his Rahu Dasha on the West Coast in California, exactly where his Rahu line
is, yeah.
In his Mount Washington Center. Rahu's significations in the West Coast of... Rahu's signification in the West Coast of the United States shows full alignment for his guru and ninth house vibration, especially during the Rahu Dasha, really pushing him like a magnet to the West Coast so that he could properly transcend, so that he could properly ascend.
Man, this is brilliant. This is brilliant.
So the craziest part about it is that Yogananda consciously, and I say consciously, ascended March 7th, 1952, while in Rahu Ketu Dasha in Los Angeles, California, exactly where the Rahu Sun conjunction is. And so the Rahu Ketu line, in association with him being in the same dasha of Rahu Ketu, it was almost as if it was fate, because there's no way that Yogananda knew his astrocartography. I don't think he knew astrocartography.
Right. Where's this Ketu line? Is that the blue color line or the?
No. Well, the nodal lines have to look at the Rahu position here.
Okay, so Rahu also signifies Ketu.
Yes.
Okay.
In astrocartography, it's kind of like a mixture of the vibrations there.
Okay, I see.
But if Rahu's in the ascendant in the chart, then the ascending node line has more Rahu vibration.
Okay.
If like Rahu's in the first house.
Okay.
If Rahu's in the 4th or 10th house, more Medhaven vibration. In the 7th house or lower, more of the southern vibration.
Okay.
Just descending.
And it's funny, yeah, okay, I see. It's funny how his Rahu is actually in the sign of Aries, which represents himself as well.
Yeah. And as I was told by many of his disciples, that he knew that it was his time much before it was his time, and he left through a conscious chanting and meditation. His spirit joined the Paramatman, so it was a true Mahasamadhi.
I think it's called what, Nabi Kalpa Samadhi?
Yeah. So just to conclude some things, just to remember about astrocartography, there's no specific lines that indicate anything for anyone. So it's not like your sun line indicates this, your moon line indicates this, your Venus. Yes, those planets have significations, but we have to use the D1. And in consultations, I use the D9 and other divisional charts. So it does get much more complicated.
Can you give us, I was actually going to ask you too, can you give us a small example of how you were studying the D9 for those like me or other people who are actually aware of the D9 and the D10 and all that? What is it that you look for in there?
Sure. Let's go back to Yogananda.
Okay.
And I'm going to pull up his D9 over here. So as we look at Yogananda's D9, we notice that the Rahu-Saturn conjunction in the 4th house and Ketu in the 10th.
Okay.
So this would show a career or lifelong energy, which would bring him abroad. It would also show sometimes feeling separation from the homeland and the missing of the homeland. But you look at kind of these aspects to see what other aspects are important. See, there's no activation of the 11th house super strongly in his D1.
Right.
But in the D9, we see Venus and Jupiter and Aquarius in the 11th house. So as he became more of a guru, friends became much more important.
Okay.
You need allies. You need friends who support you. But basically, with how I use it for astrocartography, it might be better to look at the example of someone who's not enlightened.
Okay.
Because they're going to be experiencing their chart more humanly. Such as this crazy actress.
Oh, Angelina, okay.
Okay, so if we look at her D9, it's in Leo, it's semi-decent position there, but we also notice a Rahu-Mercury conjunction in Virgo. That could actually be a positive position, especially because it's in the 2nd house of wealth. She has a Mars-Moon conjunction in the 5th house, where we already see Rahu in the 5th house in the D1.
Right.
So now we have to consider her Mars-Moon line as even being more malefic than they are just from the D1. So it's very interesting that in Southern California, she has a positive energy, but the energy gets much darker in the Northern California.
Why is that the Northern California is getting more darker than the Southern?
Because of the Mars-Moon conjunction.
Oh, I see, because it's way up there. Okay. But isn't Mars or Yoga Karka in the birth and Navamsha?
Yes.
So wouldn't that be more positive, though, than negative? How?
It might be positive for her career because it rules her 10th house, but she won't be happy there.
I see. Okay, you mean personally it will not give that. Okay.
Like a lot of times places might be good for finances. They might be good for love. They might be good for spiritual advancement. But do we have to trade one for the other? Not necessarily.
Right.
There are certain places which carry an overall positive energy, and the Mars line would not necessarily be the most positive. And it's also directly next to Pluto.
Okay. Yeah, see that's, yeah.
So she's much safer in Southern California than any other place of the United States. But obviously when we're using the D9, or let's say we take a look at her D10 for career, we notice Saturn is in Capricorn in the 10th house.
Yeah.
Saturn is nowhere in the United States. So that means that it would be beneficial for her career, to look where her Saturn line is to see where she could work internationally.
And as you know, she is very much not involved with UN, but that's more of a non-profit thing.
That's Saturn too, because it's
exactly service.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of energies here that support her really wanting to give back. And that's why I feel on some level she has good intentions, but like all.
And look, Mars gave her fame in California because Mars, Venus are conjunct in the Lagna of Dasamsha. So she was always near that particular line.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. No, I see where you get into. But then as people may not know, it does get complicated because I know, talking to you personally, you're looking at the benefic aspects, disharmonious aspects, correct?
Yes, it gets a little more advanced, like through consultation, when you look at any planets which are aspecting, and depending on how they're aspecting, they could be showing their inauspicious energies, or they could be showing their auspicious energies.
Okay.
So let's say you have a challenged Mars in your chart, then maybe a place which has a harmonious Mars aspect might actually be a little beneficial in certain ways. So we have to look at this harmonious, disharmonious aspect lines based on the planetary relationship to see that if it's going to be comfortable or not.
Right. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. So let's see if I have anything else I want to mention. So yeah, astrocartography can be a really helpful tool in helping determine where to be at the right time, where certain karmic blessings might wait for you, and where other places difficulties and challenges might show up. So we can align with Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha and use this ACG along with our D1, D9, and other divisional charts to help achieve the aim of life, which it is associated with. But again, it always ends with the concept that we cannot escape our karma. So no matter where we go, understanding that our karma will follow us, but we can go to places that make achieving our certain aims of life that are activated in our life easier or harder. I've had certain clients that should be achieving Artha, but they're in a moksha place. And because they should be achieving Artha and they're in a moksha place, they feel suffering because they're not achieving Artha. I've also had people that are wanting to retire and experience more of a moksha vibration to find themselves in an Artha place. You got to get out of that place and retire to a moksha place.
Okay.
So this is an important concept to understand when we're activated through the dasha, what aim of life is really this time of life for us. So that's a helpful tool in understanding the astrocartography as well. And I just want to thank Kapiel Ji for letting me share my research on this.
No, this is brilliant. So I'm sure people are going to wonder how they can get consultations from you. You gave your website there, right? The .org.
Yeah. Just my website is jyotishastrology.org.
Okay.
And, pretty simple, Jyotish Astrology, and I love doing the astrocartography reading. And obviously, we look at the D1 and the D9 and how that's going to impact the astrocartography.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you very much for letting me share that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kṣaṇāti. But don't go. I want to end this reading and then just ask you some questions. So I'm going to close this reading. Thank you very much, guys. Now it's my time.
Blessings, Kapiel Ji.
Thank you.